Imagine a world where the very existence of humanity hangs by a thread, where the fury of nature, or perhaps something far greater, decides to wipe out everything we know. A story as old as time, whispered in sacred texts, etched into the collective memory of humankind. A catastrophe of epic proportions, a flood that covered the highest mountains, and one man, his family, and a colossal ark, the only hope for life. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live the last days of a condemned world and how an ordinary man would become the pivot for the survival of all life on Earth? Prepare to dive into the most fascinating legend of all, the Flood and Noah's Ark. For millennia, this narrative has been told and retold, crossing cultures, religions, and continents. But what lies behind the myth? Is it merely a moral parable, a cautionary tale, or the distant memory of a real event that shaped our planet and our civilization? Today, we will unravel the mysteries behind the water that covered everything and the vessel that defied the impossible. Our journey begins in time immemorial. Long before the historical records we know of. The earth, according to ancient scriptures, was corrupted. Human wickedness had reached an unbearable point. Violence, depravity, and injustice reigned. With each dawn, humanity seemed to sink deeper into an abyss of moral darkness. It was a chaotic scenario where the thoughts and intentions of the human heart were continually evil. Creation itself, once perfect, groaned under the weight of perversity. In this desolate scenario, a name emerges, Noah. Unlike his contemporaries, Noah was described as a righteous man, blameless in his generation, who walked with God. He did not allow himself to be contaminated by the current of evil that swept everyone away. And it was to this man, amidst general hopelessness, that a terrifying revelation, and, at the same time, an extraordinary mission was entrusted. God, in his infinite sorrow and righteous anger, decided that humanity, in its current form, needed to be purified. A global cleansing, a reset. And this cleansing would come in the form of a flood, an inundation of unprecedented proportions, that would sweep all life from the face of the earth. But Noah and his family would be spared, not by their own merit, but by divine grace and their righteousness. The instruction was clear, but the task, monumental, to build an ark, not an ordinary boat, but a gigantic vessel, with specific dimensions, made of gopher wood, pitched inside and out. 3 decks, compartments to house not only his family, but also pairs of every kind of land animal, birds, and reptiles. Imagine the scene, a man, perhaps already old, receiving an order that defied all human logic and experience. A global flood, an ark, to save life on Earth. The incredulity must have been overwhelming for anyone who heard. And so, Noah began. For decades, he and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, worked tirelessly. The sound of hammers and saws echoed in a world that mocked them. People passed by, saw that colossal structure growing in the middle of nowhere, far from any body of water, and laughed. Madman, what is he building? A boat in the desert? The questions, the taunts, the disbelief must have been constant. But Noah, with unwavering faith, persisted. Every plank, every nail, every layer of pitch was an act of obedience and trust, in a promise that seemed absurd. He was not only building the ark, but also preaching, warning, inviting people to repentance. But no one listened. The world was blind, deaf, immersed in its own self-destruction. Finally, after years of arduous work, the ark was ready. An imposing structure, about 135 meters long, 22.5 meters wide, and 13.5 meters high. A true floating colossus, designed to withstand the fury of a collapsing world. And then, the miracle began to unfold. From all corners of the earth, the animals began to arrive. Not one by one, but in pairs, male and female, of every species. Lions and lambs, elephants and mice, birds of prey and songbirds, reptiles and insects. A silent procession, guided by a divine instinct, converging on the ark. How were they gathered? How was order maintained? Modern science still grapples with the logistics, but the narrative points to a supernatural intervention, a testament to the power that orchestrated that event. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives, 8 souls in total, entered the ark. And then, the door closed. Not by human hands, but by an invisible force, sealing the fate of one world and the hope of another. And the waiting began. 7 days of silence, perhaps of apprehension, while the world outside continued its routine, oblivious to what was coming. And then, it came. Not a drizzle, not an ordinary storm. The floodgates of the heavens were opened, and the fountains of the great deep burst forth. The water came not only from above but from below, erupting from the earth with unimaginable force. Torrential, incessant rain for 40 days and 40 nights. The water level rose relentlessly. Cities, forests, mountains, everything was swallowed. The panic must have been indescribable. People who had once mocked now ran in despair, seeking refuge, on higher ground, in trees, anywhere that could offer a moment of relief. But the water continued to rise, relentless, until it covered the highest mountains. The ark, once an object of scorn, now floated, a solitary point of hope in an ocean of destruction. Inside it, life, 8 people and thousands of animals, confined, but safe. Imagine the sound, the roar of the water outside, the smell of animals, the constant rocking of the vessel, the darkness, the uncertainty, but also the certainty that they were under divine protection. Life inside the ark was a routine of care, feeding, cleaning, and waiting for the fury to end, for dry land to return. 150 days passed, and the waters prevailed over the earth. But then, the tide began to turn. God remembered Noah and all the living creatures in the ark. A wind began to blow, and the waters began to recede. Slowly, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. But the land was not yet dry. Noah's patience was tested again. He sent out a raven, which flew back and forth, finding no place to land. Then, a dove. The first time, it returned with nothing. The second time, it returned with a fresh olive leaf in its beak, a sign of life, of hope, that the land was and the third time, the dove did not return, indicating that the land was dry and habitable. Finally, after more than a year inside the ark, the door opened. The sight must have been breathtaking. A new world, washed clean, purified. The fresh air, the sun, the firm ground underfoot. The animals came out in pairs, spreading out to repopulate the planet. And the first thing Noah did was build an altar and offer sacrifices to God. In gratitude for salvation, it was at this moment of new beginning that God established a covenant with Noah and with all life on earth. A solemn promise, never again would all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood. And as a sign of this covenant, God set the rainbow in the clouds, a bridge of colors in the sky, an eternal reminder of his promise, a symbol of hope and renewal. The story of the flood and Noah's Ark is more than a children's tale or an ancient legend. It resonates in various cultures around the globe, with variations in details, but with a common core, a great flood, the destruction of humanity, and the survival of some in a vessel. From the Sumerian epics of Gilgamesh and Atrahasis, to myths of indigenous peoples in the Americas, Asia, and Oceania, the narrative of a universal flood is a recurring theme. This raises profound questions. Could it be a collective memory of a real cataclysmic event, perhaps a regional flood of epic proportions that was amplified and universalized over time? Or is it a universal archetype of the human psyche, a tale of purification, judgment, and rebirth? Regardless of the literal or symbolic interpretation, the story of Noah and the flood carries timeless lessons. It speaks of faith and obedience in the face of disbelief, of the resilience of the human spirit and the ability to start anew, of the consequences of depravity and the need for righteousness, and, above all, of divine grace and the promise of a new beginning. Noah's Ark, for many, is not just a ship, but a symbol of salvation, of refuge amidst the storms of life. The flood, a reminder of the fragility of existence and the importance of living in harmony with higher principles. And the rainbow, a beacon of hope, a reminder that even after the greatest storms, the sun always shines again, and new promises are made. Even today, expeditions and research seek evidence of the Ark in the mountains of Ararat, Turkey, fueling curiosity and debate. But perhaps the true Ark is not in a physical location, but in the memory and consciousness of humanity, a constant reminder of our history, our challenges, and our ability to transcend out. So, the next time you see a rainbow in the sky, remember Noah's story. Remember the water that covered everything, the faith that built the impossible, and the promise that guaranteed a new dawn for all life on earth. A story that invites us to reflect on our own role in the world, on the choices we make, and on the hope we carry for the future. The flood in Noah's Ark, a legend that continues to fascinate us, challenge us, and inspire us, echoing through the centuries as a testament to the resilience of life and the power of faith.